Welcome to Scrum Wednesdays. I'm glad that we are still running and that everything is doing great. It's always good to have a familiar face with us. Roland already had quite a great meetup on effective servant leadership in a nutshell. Now he wants to take it a bit further, and I would also like to invite him not to be so modest this time and really promote the training that we are trying to have here in Serbia if everything goes well and the situation is good enough. So without further ado, Roland,
yes,
please feel free to continue.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, I need to say that these meetups are content-wise pretty cool. I mean, it's good stuff that you're doing. To be quite honest, I didn't follow any other ones than my own, but I see all the titles and the descriptions coming by of stuff that you're discussing, and each time I think, man, I should attend, but no, I never did it. I'm really a little bit ashamed of that. Okay, so my apologies for not joining because I really like what you do and the content is really good. So yes, effective servant leadership. Well, I'm gonna, for those people who are listening in for the second time, there's going to be a small part of it is going to be repetition. Not that that might be bad, but just to warn you that there is some overlap with last time. But we're going to do some different stuff too as well tonight. So my name is Roland, and I'm a Scrum trainer, and I'm from Holland. And I've been a Scrum Master since, well, I don't know, some 2010, like somewhere there. And in my Scrum Master career, I don't know actually what you guys do. That would be interesting to know. So let's first, before I do anything else, in the chat, I will paste a link to a Jamboard that should be accessible to everybody, where you guys can maybe make a small note. How do I do this? Where's the chat? Here's the chat. I don't see a chat window. Oh, it's hidden. Bear with me. I can't seem to get a chat window for some reason. Oh, wait a minute. It's underneath my window of Windows. So I want you to have a look at this board, and there you go. It's a Jamboard. It's very easy. I will go to that Jamboard and see if you guys are entering, and I see people entering. On the left-hand side, there is a series of icons, and the 1, 2, 3, 4th from the top on the left-hand side is called Sticky Note. And if you click it, you get a window and you just type some stuff in it. And when you enter, you create a sticky note. And when you push cancel, then it's gone. So now, yeah, make a sticky note for yourself. You can enlarge it, rotate it, choose different colors. While you're doing that, I'm explaining to you that in the top middle, there's a navigator you can use to browse through different pages, frames they call it, of this tool. And so this is page 1 to figure out how to make a sticky note. That's all we need to learn. And on page 2, if you want, maybe you could write down your name in a sticky, your role. So what do you do for a living? I'm a developer, or I am a teacher in Scrum, or I am a consultant in whatever, a project manager. Years of experience with Scrum. That's what I would like to know. So then I have an idea of my background, of the background of my audience. Looks good. In the meanwhile, Scrum Master, perfect. I'm a Scrum Master too, and I still do it. I'm working for a customer now, and I was just sharing that I'm physical at a location. And the reason why is that I've been hired by the director, and the director asked me, so how are you going to do this remote? Because your assignment is to get started with Agile and Scrum in our bank. I said, well, how important is it for you? He says, it's really very important. We need to get this done. I said, well, if it's very important for you, then I would choose to have as much physical time with people as possible, because starting such a deep change remotely is going to be difficult. So he agreed, and we got a waiver, which means that we're allowed for me to invite people to start up teams, which is really good. So I'm in an office and I'm starting up new Agile and Scrum teams. I'm a very happy person. Now, this whole thing about being a Scrum Master and directors calling me to ask me to help them with their Scrum implementation. There's a large gap of time in between, you know, becoming a Scrum Master and being called by a director who wants some stuff from you. And I've learned a lot over time. For instance, how to talk to C-level people, directors. I was not very good at that. When I started my career as a Scrum Master, I was more of a bold person who thought that I saw the light, and then that I knew how everybody should start working to become a happier person. And I just thought everybody who didn't understand that was stupid. So you can imagine that I had a lot of fights during my career with people who needed a little bit more tenderness, love, and care to get them to, you know, to understand where they're at and maybe to change their points of view. But I've learned it the hard way. So I've only recently, about a year ago, or maybe 1.5 years ago, no, 2 years ago for the first time, I started to get interested more in deeper stuff, psychology and how the brain works. And, you know, beyond implementing a framework or processes, I learned that it's mainly having the skill of being able to reach out and work with people. Now, thank God I found out, because otherwise I wouldn't have been such a happy Scrum Master as I am now. And as I was finding that out for myself, in the meanwhile, I'm skipping a page showing some stuff of the things that I do in my presentation. While I was learning that about myself, and I was getting more knowledge about all the other aspects that are there to learn to become more effective, I came to realize that actually there is not really, maybe there is, but I couldn't find it, a good place where you can learn that. It's like, you know, where can you learn how to become a good parent? I've got 2 kids, but I never went to parenthood school. You know, we just, you know, did it and then we had them. You know, that's the way it went. I was a lucky guy. But then again, here you are, you have these kids, and what are you going to do? And you have to find your way by learning and adapting to see what it's like to raise kids. And in that same way, I learned that there was no real school where you could properly learn how to become that servant leader that Scrum asks you to be when you are a Scrum Master. Because it only teaches you, Scrum only teaches you the framework and maybe something about scaling, so some organizational stuff. And the rest is in between the words of the Scrum guide, and you need to figure them out yourself. So doing these coaching trainings, I was getting a little bit annoyed by the fact that they're really focused on solving people's problems most of the time. Like I have a problem with my inner self and I need to fix it, and therefore I go to a coach and he's going to help me choosing the right colors for my wardrobe or whatever and make me more happy. Now that's not the kind of thing that I was really looking for. And I also noticed that the teachers that were teaching that stuff to me were most cases like from a totally different field than I was. And I like diversity, so I'm open to hear what they have to say, but they were really like old school and really busy working as a working person in an environment that really did not match Scrum or Agile at all. They didn't know what it was. Which led for me to think that there was a need for creating a training that does that combines all you need to know from the stuff that we actually do. So that's you know, implementing frameworks, creating good products, all that kind of stuff. But also the aspect, and a very large part of that aspect that we are forgetting, which is the people side of things, the soft skills. So how do you act? What actually, who are you inside? How do you act? How well do you play the instrument called yourself? Because if you are very much aware of your own impulses and responses when you're under pressure, let it be that you have to do something very difficult, so you're under pressure, or maybe there's all eyes on you, C-level people, and you really need to kick it this time, or maybe there's somebody who's very angry with you because they're very resistant to change, and they really focus on you because you are the one that brings all the bad news. Then it's a matter of being Zen, right, and understanding what your fight and flight modes are and how you can deal with them. So if you know that, then there's this space in your brain, this capacity that you can use to try to understand what this person is really telling to you. If you get at that level, then you are able to do the right things consciously. Maybe even if you get very good at it, you can see your options and you can choose what do you think at that moment would be most appropriate. Now that's the part that I think people should learn for becoming a better Scrum Master or a better Agile coach or a better Agile manager or leader of a company. And what it takes to get there, to learn that stuff, is to become vulnerable, really vulnerable. So this training that I've created, we are trying to get that running, or we're trying to get that going in Belgrade, amongst other places. And as Bogdan said, I have to be less modest about this. So guys, we're going to do some teaching later on. You're going to experience some stuff that is going to be helpful for you, hopefully tomorrow when you're back to work. I do this for free, but you know what happens when things are for free? You're the product, right? And really, you are the product because I'm trying to sell my training here. You get a taste, you see me, you see what I am, you see what I do, and this is the way that I help you guys to get started with exploring yourself. So what happens in the training is that when you come into the training, you need to bring a couple of problematic cases. Now, I see Nixa, for instance. Nixa, can you tell me, in your career, have you ever had a moment that you were really under stress at work?
Yes, a couple of them.
Okay, so would you mind sharing maybe one in just a few short sentences to give us an idea on what happened?
Yeah, when back a couple of years ago when I was a project manager, my stress was basically constantly going almost for 1 year, because I had to participate almost every day in escalation meetings with the management, and they were always trying to search the guilty party in there. And of course, as the lowest guy in the chain as a project manager or other project manager, they were never implied. They never explicitly said this thing, but of course they were always trying to find the scapegoats. And although I could not change anything there, it really was incredibly stressful.
Yes. So you were under stress, and there was no way to get out, right?
Yeah, there was. I left the company, of course.
Yeah.
And they were, as the stress has gone then immediately afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So and somebody else maybe who wants to share. Let me see. JBN, I think that's Josipa, right? Am I right? Yeah. So do you have one of these dreadful experiences that you wouldn't mind sharing with us? Your mic's mute, yeah.
Well, my problem is that I'm a control freak.
Control freak?
And yep. And as a Scrum Master, I have to learn how to not control everything. So
yeah,
that's my stress.
That's interesting. Point. So when you're a control freak, then what kind of basic need do you have then? There must be a basic need that makes you, show this behavior.
Yes, one thing that I can control is myself. So I'm controlling myself not to explode. I'm choosing the right word, what to say to my team. And so, but inside of me, I'm imploding. I want to scream. I want to kill somebody. Quentin Tarantino have lots of movies in my head, but
so why would you want to kill someone? What would be the reason for you to think, I'm gonna kill you?
Because they don't see how to solve the problem. It's
Okay.
for me, it's so obvious and simple, but they just want to talk about and talk and talk and talk and don't do anything. So I hate that. So I have to control
Yes.
myself not to say just do that and
Then-
go on, move on. Don't
Okay,
waste
so
my time.
but you've got that covered. You don't explode, right? And
No.
you don't kill
Yes.
people, because otherwise you wouldn't be here.
Yes.
So what is your, so you got yourself under control. You see
Yes.
that this thing aggravates you.
Yes.
Now, what's your next step?
Well, if I'm really, really under stress, I just walk out. First,
You
I
walk out.
I take a few deep breaths. Then I have to move from this situation, then calm myself down and then continue
Okay.
doing what I have to do.
So your goal would be, one of your goals could be to try to, because, oh no, let me ask a different question. Walking out of the room,
Yes.
that's flight mode, right? You want to take some time for yourself to calm down and then get to reason and get back.
Yes. Or I know that I have a choice to take out from this situation, move, think, clear myself, clear my mind, and come to situation to solve the problem.
Okay.
I just have to make a switch.
Yes.
Move my focus.
Move
To
your,
something else. To change
so would you want,
perspectives.
would one of your goals be maybe to get better at handling, if I may interpret this, and if I'm wrong, then you say, this disappointment that you have? Right?
Well, it's not disappointment. I have to learn, and I'm learning that as a Scrum Master, that I cannot control everything, and that I cannot. I'm not the problem solver for everybody. I know that I have to learn people how to solve the problem, but I'm not.
Yes.
I don't have patience. I have to learn how to be patient.
Okay. And if that is your goal, to try to become more patient.
Yes.
Did you already take concrete steps to work on that? Did you do an experiment to see if you could improve your patience?
Yes.
Okay. Can you name one?
Well, first of all, I'm aware of that people are different, and that we all have some baggage, some demons inside of us. So we have to change perspective. And I'm trying to accept people just the way they are, not to try to change them and that they're not me. Not to, I don't know how to say it, but project myself to them.
Okay, very good.
I try to understand them, that they have some I miss the word, как се каже образец?
Sure, I understand.
Pattern.
Pattern, yes.
Pattern.
Yes, behavior pattern. So I try to be more flexible.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. And if you tried that, what was the effect on the other people around you? What happened?
Well, they're more cooperate, they're calm, and then after a few days, I go to psychotherapist and just throw everything out. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, it would be nice if we could get rid of that psychotherapist of yours, and maybe give you one or two how'd you call that, ways of managing yourself and being your own therapist, right? Because that's what ESL is about. People that do ESL become their own therapists. Now, I was just starting a small pathway into a conversation that we have on something that happens in your life where you struggle with problems. And I was starting to use a model called GROW, which is a goal-oriented model. I first asked, like, what is your goal, right? I don't want to know, I'm not going to go in depth rambling on about all the problems that you have, because that's very easy. And talking about problems is what you do at your psychotherapist. That's where you can talk about your problems, and they will maybe try to find out where it comes from. And maybe it's related to your parents or that horrible neighbor that you had or whatever. It's in the past. Now, models like the GROW model are models for ordering your thoughts and understanding your emotions better by not looking at the past, but by looking at the future. So that's why I was trying to move you from talking about your problems towards what are you trying to aim at? What are you trying to reach? What is your goal? And then you came up with this beautiful thing, is that actually you want to become more patient. Now, if that is a goal that you can hold on to for a while, and you already showed me that you are already working on it by doing some experiments while you were at the work floor in stress, and you remembered, which is excellent. I need to have patience and understand that people are different, and then I asked you for the effect, and then you told me that it was successful, actually. So starting from, not from problems, but starting from goals, and using goals and make them real, and creating new pathways, new experiments, and then stick to it, can create new behavior for you and create new insights that will give you a way out and will give you new behaviors ultimately. Because if you consciously do an experiment to try to reach a goal and you find that you succeeded a little bit, you will become motivated to try more. And that is what will be your new behavior. Because behavior is actually not static, it's something that evolves all the time. Now, that was just a side step because I was not intending and thinking about talking about the GROW model at all. G-R-O-W, you can look it up. But thank you for this interesting example, by the way. And it goes further, and in the training, right, we'll really go deeper into what does it mean, all these stages of the GROW, what are the reasons for doing these steps, 5 steps, and then you're going to practice it. And then people like you will bring in this case and very specifically go in the role of a coach or a coachee. You will be coaching each other, and then you will reflect on it, and then we will share the experiences in the class, and that will give you time to really work with these models and make them your own and choose your favorite model, because there's lots of them. So that's one aspect of what we do in effective servant leadership. We give you the tools that will enable you to really start working on, very consciously, on fixing those impediments that you have in yourself that made you successful even, and try to tackle them and, get the edges off and find ways to make your own life better, and without being selfish, by the way. Good. Now, we did Jamboard already. I see some names. I see some people who, if somebody did not put in their name and profession and experience, please do that. It would really help me to know which audience has been listening here on the Jamboard, and that address is in the chat. So now I already explained a little bit why I went on focusing on effective servant leadership. And one part came up when I was talking with Jasper about this, not focusing on the problem. I was really considering to stop being a Scrum Master, because what Scrum does, and it says in the Scrum Guide, it shows the relative inefficacy of your software development processes. So it shows you all the problems you have to reach the perfection goal of Scrum, perfect Scrum. So basically what it does, each time you're trying something, you find you didn't finish the sprint, or I don't know, somebody is not on time for the daily Scrum, or they just do the silly questions and they don't know what they're busy with. There's all these problems that you need to fix continuously. So the continuous mode of fixing problems, just I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like a continuous problem solver, and focusing more on goals. What do I want actually? I want a life without problems. Well, a goal, right, is a different way of looking at problems. It's not like zooming and looking back in the past Like, why do I have these problems? It's looking at the future. Like, what do I really want? And set a goal. And that the goal that you set is probably not going to be a problem that you want to reach, but something nice. And I really like that because I'm a positive guy. So as soon as I started to work more goal-oriented instead of problem solving, I immediately noticed that I was becoming more successful. Strange but true, but it's just, you know, what you radiate in your behavior and everything. It makes you more positive. So so I wanted to get out of the problem solving mode. I found out that I was really crap in dealing with people and that I needed to get my act in shape to be able to not, I got kicked out of assignments all the time. And in the beginning, I thought I was being successful. Like, I'm the change agent and I'm a rebel and I need to be that because I'm a Scrum Master. And that is true, but it also shows that you're an immature Scrum Master if you're not able, for me as a freelancer, to get people into a change mode. So to overcome the resistance, basically, that these people have towards the information or the change that you're bringing. And you know, understanding yourself and what your effect is on people, what your default behavior is. I always want to be the nice guy. You know, I don't mind saying rough things to people, but ultimately I want them to see me as a cool guy, and that holds me back. You know, as soon as I'm aware of, hey, I'm trying to please here, I know that I'm not going to get the best results. So I need to find other options of behaviors that I choose, that I have in me, that are maybe not so easy accessible for me, that I should use at certain times to become more successful. And I can only make these choices of bringing forward that part of my personality that I need at that specific time. If I can really manage that to switch, I'm really a much more effective person to reach my goals, right? To reach my goals of having a good relationship with my wife, or making sure that everybody understands Scrum at the work floor, or talking to a C-level person who hates my guts. This is an empty slide. Here it is. The ESL competency donut. So I made a donut because I saw that there was this coaching donut, but it was missing a couple of things, and don't go ask me what exactly are the differences. You will get a copy of this slide deck in PDF, so you can read it afterwards, or you can look up Effective Servant Leadership with my name on it, and you will find it as well as a download on my website. The self is at the bottom in pink. I love pink. Pink is, it's a great color. It's a happy color. So think of flamingos. Think of the Pink Panther. Pink is just a happy color. Now, if it's a party, you're going to be pink. And that's why self is pink. Self is in the middle at the bottom. Although a donut is round, there's the fundament, and that's yourself. So if you know yourself, and if you understand the powers that drive you, and if you can control them, and if you can work on your skills, then you will become better for other people, right? If you don't know yourself, you cannot serve others. So first you need to understand and play your instrument properly. And then you can start working with others. So you go from self to individual, and you can go from one individual to more individual. So you get team dynamics. And from team dynamics, you can go into organizational dynamics. And then there's the business side of it. And the business side is a forgotten thing, but I think we need to be able to spark creativity. We need to be able to get people in a mode where they get great ideas, because we are all eating of that product that they're selling, right? That the company is making. And in between that, there's all these skills that we can work on. We can work on learning better how to teach. We can learn better how to learn for ourselves. How can we optimize our learning? We can work on soft skills. We can learn on how to develop individuals or grow teams, etc., etc. And all of these things, right? All of these skills or elements, I went up and looked into stuff that I've learned, like frameworks, ideas from psychology. What do we need to know from Jung to be able to be a good servant leader, right? We need to be able to know of the understream, the subconscious parts that are in us. We need to know how they come out and make projections outside. We need to be aware of that. We need to understand and recognize that in ourselves and in others. There's like a ton of information. And what I do is I take very practical stuff and we apply it by practicing it. So you can choose for yourself whether you think, oh, this kind of, you know, approach really fits for me and works very well. And you get, I try to, I don't know, like 25 or 30 different formats for having conversations, for conveying emotions, for doing systemic change in organizations, all kinds of techniques. And then you can choose of those to elaborate on them, to read more about them for yourselves, because it's just too much. You know, all this information in that donuts probably cost you a year if you really want to do it more thoroughly. Now, that about the subjects. What will you learn today? Today we will talk about this, for instance. This is one of the subjects that we touch upon just briefly when we talk about human communication. Simple things like having a decent conversation. Now, think back of emails that you receive. When you receive an email from someone, 9 times out of 10, especially when it's the first email you get from someone or an email from someone that you've seen some time ago, it says, "Hi, Roland," or your name. "How are you doing?" Or, "Hi, Roland, I hope all is well in these strange times," right? And then comes the second sentence about something else, about the reason why we're writing you. That principle comes from one of the 5 axioms of theory of human communication by Mr. Watzlavick, I don't know, Watzlavick, let's go on. So this is very interesting stuff. It's like things we tend to forget. We think it's normal to just first ask someone how you're doing and then come to get to business, right? But he really made a, how do you call it, theoretical approach to all this. He made sense of it all. Now everybody's wondering what's happening. I was just practicing rule number 1. And we're still doing it. Remember, it's impossible not to communicate. If we do nothing, if we don't say anything, we just sit. And the way I see a couple of faces, that's great. But we're all communicating. Even although your microphones are off, you're communicating with me. I see someone, you know, he's got this flashing screen in front of him. He's communicating with me. Like, I'm doing something else in the meanwhile. Well, that's good. I see other people like eyeballing when I was shutting up, like, what is the sound off? What? So I trigger a lot, even by doing nothing. Now that's a very simple thing, but very, very vital to understand, because in the series of the 5 axioms, the second one says communication has content level and a relational level. And then beware, there's one thing not said in this line, but I need to tell you that the relational level of what is being communicated is the strongest part of the message. So whatever I say, and even if I say nothing, we have established a certain relation. We have established, there was an invitation somehow, an invitation to start communicating, and we have established a relationship. Think about it. And whatever I do, whatever I say, is less important than the way that we, without maybe saying so, established our relationship. And that means, and you can feel that sometimes when you get in touch with a person, maybe when you meet a person for the first time, within a second, you know whether you like this person or not. When you meet a person that is very red, like very, you know, the color coding for people, like the red people are the more sales driven, they want to score kind of people. like alpha people, right? When you feel that somebody needs to be top dog, right, then it won't go out of your head anymore. It immediately established that relationship is more important than whatever the guy says to you. And that's very important if you want to convey your ideas to someone else. Like, you have to be aware of that. And maybe you can try to find out and make it visible in the relationship how that relationship is. It's like saying, hi, how are you doing? And then get to business, right? As a good coach in important conversations, it would be good to discuss the way that we think we level, and then start discussing the stuff that we need to talk about. And doing this will make you very effective. I can assure you. Yeah. Anyway, 3, punctuation shapes the meaning according to the person. Well, that's not really punctuation like we say with commas and points and all that. The punctuation part in this theory is about patterns in communication. Punctuation, you have to read that as patterns. That's how he called it. And patterns in communication are suppositions that we have, assumptions that we have, but that we're not really aware of. But it's when you are a coach and you observe conversations with team members working in a Scrum team, for instance, try to find, you will see patterns. You will see that people always do the same kind of dance when they talk, in the way they are connected to each other. And it might be that one person feels as if they're the senior and the other is the junior, right? Or it might be so the team lead and the lower placed person. And whatever this top dog guy says is going to be from a top position, simply said. It could also be in relationships where a man and a woman always talk in a way that women can nag. They can go on about things. We men, we get aggravated, right? It's like we feel we're not being taken seriously. And that's also a pattern, because it's about the expectations that we have from each other. So punctuation is about understanding patterns that you see in conversations, to understand that people always take these roles. And if you see those patterns, then the goal of the coach is not to talk about what the people are talking about. So don't act on the content, but act on the pattern. Share what you observe. That will make you effective. And then there's symmetrical. So there's digital and analog communication, but that's verbal and nonverbal. When I was doing nothing just now, there was a lot of nonverbal communication going on. Nonverbal communication means, right, when I'm sitting like this and I'm watching at the ceiling, then I'm really radiating that I'm not with you. So we all know about that, I think. And then the last one, symmetrical communication and complementary. There's always equal or unequal communication, which is very closely related to the patterns. And we know this example. This is an example of first you ask, how is life? And then you ask, did you finish your work yesterday? This is an example of unequal communication, so complementary. She says, I've been there before. What you need is a burn down. So she's being a parent, giving an unsolicited advice. She's just giving an advice. And then the other person can say, well, act like a child. We are so busy. Nobody else makes burn downs ever. So the answer is like a childish answer. But what you can see here is this is very ineffective communication. They're not equal. And when you sense this as a coach, you have to try to change these two behaviors of parent and child into parents and parents, or children with children, or adults with adults would be even better. And of course, the trick is to understand how to do that. But again, addressing what you see in an observation and not getting interfering in the conversation content, but just looking at the structure that you see that there is an inequality, you could at least, if you don't know how to do it, you can say, hey guys, I notice you guys, do you notice this as well, that you are, it looks to me like you're not talking at the same level to each other. It looks like it's going a bit like this. Do you sense this too? And then you go, what do you mean? Well, I don't know. It's like, did you do this or that? And you go, nobody does that. That's like a parent to a child or not? Or, and then when they start thinking about it, they might disagree, right? But they will be aware that there is these inequalities in conversations. And there's lots of forms, but I don't think it's very practical to really understand and know, to determine, oh, this is such a form. It's more, the essence is to try to help people to understand that they're not having a very helpful conversation with each other. Now we're going to go into doing something practical, like with real exercise. For that, I will put you guys, after I've explained what micro skills are, I'll put you guys in small groups so you can do a little dialogue together, practicing micro skills. Micro skills is actually something very obvious and very simple, that again focuses on the conversation that we just discussed as content, which is the subject that we're talking about. And it has, when you have a coaching conversation with a team or with the person, then there's a certain structure. Maybe you have this coaching model that you want to, tick off and or try to follow. That would be the structure that you have, and it's your domain only, and it's your preparation, and it's your frame in your head to try to structure or to get to a certain goal with this person that you're having a conversation with. And then there's the process part, and the process part is when the conversation is actually happening. It's the interaction, and the process is the most important part during a conversation. Basically, when I'm at work, I tend to listen a lot, and people seem to think that I understand what they say. Now, I'm currently at this corporate bank, and they talk about stuff. They have like a gazillion of short words for stuff that, I didn't study economics. I don't know. It's you have to do the TLD, and the KDR has to be on the PDR, and then we have to default the XYZ to the. It's really incomprehensible. So it's very easy there to just sit and listen and not being drawn into the content too much, or not at all, which is exactly what needs to happen. Also, when you do understand the conversation, even at home, right? If you are at home and your parents or your wife and girlfriends or whatever around you are talking about stuff, and you might be involved, but then try to step away from the content and try to focus on how are these people talking to each other, right? Do I see unequal communication? Do I see equal communication? What if I would try to be unequal when I say something? Now that's interesting to do that. So the main thing a coach does is 80% of the time you just listen. And maybe you paraphrase and you repeat a little bit what somebody says. And when you get active and you say something, that's called an intervention. And you don't want to intervene too much. You only want to intervene when you think that this is going to lead to a certain change that you're trying to, or some information that you're trying to reveal to the person that you're talking with, to your coachee or your team. So be quiet is what you do all the time. And when you're in the conversation, you nod and you're going, yeah, really? Oh, can you explain that a little bit more? Really? Oh, about the KPRs. Interesting. Yes. So what did they do? Ah, okay. And then what happens? Aha. Right. So that kind of mode. And it sounds very silly, but it actually, and you could try that out when you do that in a one-on-one setup. It gives a lot of freedom for the other person to speak. And I can tell you that with 2020, and a lot of people don't get a lot of space to speak anymore. And that's a real big shame. So one of the things you can do to immediately become more effective at work is to give people a place to talk. And that person is you. And it's not that you're just ears and you don't do anything. It's data, right? It's information. You can maybe work with it, or maybe you can understand their behavior better later on, because they told you so much about things. And it's full of their opinions and their struggles, and that's the thing you need to look at. And you can derive a lot from the process of the interactions. All right, so micro skills. What are the micro skills? There's a series of them, but I only pick 3 small skills so that we could practice them for like 5 minutes with a little bit more focus. Because if I give the 24 set, it's just too big to do in such a short time. You see, this is not rocket science. This is very simple. You never knew that this was a micro skill that you probably know very well how to deal with. The open question, right? Now, what is an open question? An open question is a question that cannot be answered with a very short answer. So answering a question that can be answered with yes or no is not an open question. And answering a question that can be answered with red or blue is also not a very good open question. What's your favorite color? Red. Okay. So it started with what, which sounds like an open question, but it's not. It's a closed question. So these questions invite people to open up, to say a little bit more. And that's exactly what we want, because as coaches, we don't want to do the talking. Right? We are coaches, so it's not about us. We are coaches, it's about them, and we need to find information that we can use so we can make them better. And then, to tie back to where we come from, in order to be able to do that, you have to be able to empty yourself and be open for others. So if I am dying, right, to tell you about my latest holiday that I had, then I'd better do that at the coffee machine, not wearing my coaching hat. Because if somebody comes in and says, comes back from holiday, and I ask, hey, how was your holiday? And they say, which is an open question, and they say, yeah, it was great. We were in Italy. Oh, you were in Italy. I was in Italy too last year. It was so hot. It was incredible. And the pasta was awful. You know what? I've been eating pizzas like for 50 times in a row. I really could not eat pizzas anymore after the holiday. It was not so good for me. So basically, I am just, taking my advantage of a moment where I actually should give somebody else the room and the space to talk, but I'm drawing it towards me. I'm just hijacking the conversation, which is happening in like many, way too many conversations this time. These times, yeah. Now, anyway, so that was a bad example of using an open question. Open questions. Click down. Click down is a technique where when you listen, and there's maybe a word, a noun, that resonates because it's the most important word in the sentence or in a series of sentences. So it could be that, for instance, if somebody's talking about their holidays and they're saying, well, the water was very blue and we went out snorkeling, then I can say, snorkeling? So what I'm doing is I'm just like on a link, I'm clicking on that word because I want to know more about snorkeling. Yeah, snorkeling, we went out with a boat and then, and then you get more information about snorkeling. So just by clicking on a concept or a word that is being told, you can steer the conversation without actually hardly interfering. And paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means you just repeat what the other person said. And maybe you can do it literally, or maybe you can put your own sauce into it to make it a little bit more like your interpretation. But paraphrasing is making a short repetition, or making maybe a small summary, but don't even go there. Just repeat or say it again with your own words. I really don't like pasta. Okay, you don't like pasta. that's repeating, but it's paraphrasing. No, I don't like pasta because it gives me headaches. I don't know. Oh, headaches. Now click down. So that's the way you build up a conversation and it moves into a certain direction. That's all for now. So I made a summary of these 3 small skills, micro skills. Now, why is it important to understand these skills? Remember, there's a set, I think total is 24. And the game that we will be doing in the training is, I made a couple of subjects here to talk about. As you can see, for instance, you're going to talk with someone and you need to bring bad news. There's a budget cut, and that means that there's not going to be a raise in pay for them. You need to tell them, just, you know, to have a subject to talk about. So one person is going to talk and the other person is going to be the person talked to, obviously. I'm going to bring the bad news and somebody else is going to receive the bad news. And while I am bringing that bad news, I need to use open questions, click down, and paraphrasing. So that's the way this exercise is being set up. And when we do this in ESL, we do this with sets of 3 people. And then one person, there's cards laying on the table with all the techniques on it that we want to practice. And the goal is that the coach is going to actively choose one of the techniques, and the observer is going to point with his finger, ah, I recognize it, it was this technique that you were using. And then we switch roles. And this is very powerful, because if you can really get a grip on all these techniques and using them actively without having the cards, you will have a much more clean conversation with people, and you will get much more understanding of what they're actually doing, because you're really focusing on the process. Okay. All right. So I want to invite you, for those people who are not visible, I'm just going to click Zoom and make some breakout rooms. And yeah, so those people who are active, if you are not lucky, you're in a breakout room where there's nobody responding, then I suggest you just come back to the main room. Well, we'll see where this ends up. So the goal is that you both have a conversation, being the coach, once coach, once coachee. You're going to choose a subject you talk about, and you try to make a conversation using as much open questions, click downs, and paraphrasing as you possibly can. And when we get back, then I would like to hear whether that felt like stupid or kind of okay, or some other experiences. If there's anybody who has a question about this exercise, then please fire now. Okay. Breakout rooms. There are 17 participants. And that means I can do 8 rooms. All right, so here you go. If it doesn't work because nobody's there that wants to talk to you, then we're just going to try again with less people. Here you go. Open all rooms. Where's my mouse? The first day when we start the ESL training, effective servant leadership, is even before we get to know each other, you will learn how to properly give and receive feedback in a non-violent way, in a way that we can really share information that makes us better. And that is because that is the heart of learning about these emotional things and about these soft skills. If you're not ready to take the information in and deal with it, because it's brought in a difficult way, right? Then I'm lost, and the whole effective servant leadership training is ineffective. Now, let me choose one person. Vladimir Gajic. Hello. Good evening. Turn on your mic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you have a way with trying to interview someone using open questions, click down, and paraphrasing?
I think I did.
And how did that work?
I think it's good. Yeah, open questions are the way to not to get yes and no and to just get confirmation for what you are already think, but to actually get something different than what you already thought, to change direction of your thought.
Okay, and if you'd have to give a description of what effect paraphrasing has, what does paraphrasing do when you use it?
Well, it makes me feel that the other person is having understanding for my thought, for my emotion.
Yeah, I was experiencing that when I paraphrase, that makes me align with the person I'm talking with, because then I feed back his ideas, and then he confirms. Oh yes, exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah, when I was talking as a person that was listened to, that was asked a question. When they ask
okay.
a question, then I feel that this person is actually understanding.
Yes,
and I get
thank you.
aligned and
Thank you. Thank you for your remarks and feedback. I'm looking for someone who was in the role of interviewer or coach, and who felt some kind of difficulties, because I know there has to be difficulties if you're using this and you're trying to apply these techniques in a case. So is there somebody who felt difficulties?
I did.
You did. Tell me.
I did, particularly in the context of bringing bad news.
Yes.
I mean, bad news is bad news. So what open question can there be? So it was quite difficult to frame it like this.
Well, maybe Luca or Boris in our group, we had the same thing. Can you still recall what our conclusion was on this?
Yeah, we tried that example. I was the guy who was bringing up the news, and after bringing the news, I asked about, okay, how are you feeling about this news? Letting the other person.
Open question. How do you feel about this?
Open question. How do you feel about it? And then on the answer, I used the click method to go into. He mentioned about, he asked about, he would like to know more of the context about it and things like that. So I went to, okay, what kind of context? And then I went into explaining too much and not digging even deeper with the clicks. So
what we discovered, especially in the conversation with the budget cut and Luca, is when you need to tell someone bad news, or you want to bring a message, you are inclined to keep on sending information. You want to keep on talking. You want to keep on telling. And by using this technique, for instance, just trying to stick to open questions, click down and paraphrasing, you will need to stop talking and start listening. And that sounds like contradictory, because you need to convey a message. But hey, the message was already brought. I bring you bad news, you're not going to get the money you want. And from that point on, there's no need for saying more. There's a need for understanding better what goes on in the other person. So it feels very contradictory that you need to bring a message and you want to, I don't know, sugarcoat it, as they call it, make it better than it is, make it softer than it actually is. And then we start to use a lot of words, and we forget that the person who's being talked to is actually the one who should do all the talking, and we should be the ones listening to how this message is being received. Okay? And don't be afraid to use, which is another micro skill, not on this list, but in the set. It's called intentional silence. Say nothing. Right? When you ask a question and there's a silence, then give the person some time to think, for God's sake. Don't stop filling it up, because you will stop their thinking process. You see how simple these skills are, but how effective you can become if you are really more aware of using them. Right? Is there anybody who still wants to share something on the micro skills before we skip to the next difficult subject for the last half hour? Cool, let's move on. Yes, oh, Mario.
Okay, so I came in a minute and a half before my exercise. So I just improvised regarding paraphrasing because that's, you know, one of the exercises I already know. So I actually didn't go with this open question, click down and paraphrasing. I just skimmed the slide and tried to figure out what you guys are doing. Yeah, that was funny. It was valuable experience for me. Okay. Thanks.
It's like PowerPoint karaoke, right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's go and move on to the next part of the of this evening of this meetup. Exploring oneself. Like I said, the key to become better at what we do in actually trying to make people do what we want, right, without telling them what to do, because that's what servant leadership is all about. That's what bringing the best out in people is great, but not if it goes into the wrong direction of what needs to happen in the organization. So, but anyway, we are coaches and we're trying to get things done. We're trying to make people move in a certain direction, or we're trying to get them on board. And to do that, you have to know who you are. So let's investigate a little bit who we are. And this is a model from a guy named Ofman. He's a Dutch guy. And I was hoping that this, yes, this is better. Oh no, let's take this one. So the core quality is one quality that people know you from. If you think for yourself, what is it, if I would ask someone to describe me, what would they say I'm like? What is my core quality? Would they say I'm a grumpy guy who's always complaining? Would they say that I'm always the guy that brings up the solutions? Would they say that I'm a performer? Would they say that I'm a huggy teddy bear? What is it that people say that that they know you from, that really associate with you? That's your core quality. What is it in life that doesn't cost you any effort? And also, that same quality is probably something that you encourage in others. Because, hey, we're only human. And we're full of projections, right? Projections means that we want people to do things the way we do them. And therefore, we might encourage people into things that we are really good at, or we think is very valuable. So think for yourself, what is your core quality? For instance, I can arrange stuff really neatly. I'm very good at that, arranging stuff. I'm very good at giving everybody the space to evolve themselves, to develop themselves. And I want you to write it down on a sticky note for yourself, locally on a piece of paper. Just write down what you think is your core quality. So when people think about Anastasia, what do they appreciate about her? What is it people talk about when you say, oh, please describe Jovanka? Then what's she like? What is her core quality? What will people say? He's such a knowledgeable person, right? Or he's so enthusiastic always about things. Good. Now that you've written this down, let's move on to an example of how this quadrant works, because this quadrant works as follows. Your core quality is what brought you where you are. It's your primary survival mode. It's your thing that you can trust. This is why you're still alive. This is what makes you money. This is what people know you for, right? This is everything. And there's a lot associated because you got multiple core qualities, but it's like one big one and then a lot of smaller ones, and then it gets vague. Now, if you have too much of a certain core quality, if you overdo it, then that core quality all of a sudden becomes not so nice anymore. It becomes a pitfall. Yeah. So if you are always very nice and pleasant with everybody, let's take that as an example for core quality. He's such a friendly person. He's friendly with everybody, right? The pitfall might be is that you become like a slime ball. You know what a slime ball is? Like a person who's always so, he's like greasy. He's like, oh man, you know, never a bad word, always nice to everybody, too nice, too good to be true, man. That's a pitfall, right? If you're too nice, then people will see you as maybe they can't trust you anymore because you're too nice. There has to be something that makes you angry or upset. So that's a pitfall. If too much of nice becomes something not so good. Now, there's also, so you can use this model to find out what your pitfall is if you look at your own thingy that you've written down, your own core quality. You could ask yourself, so my core quality is whatever it is. And then you can ask yourself, what do others blame me for? Right? Being Mr. Nice Guy, maybe? For never being angry? What do I tolerate from myself? What do I tolerate from myself? Because that's my pitfall. That's when I get too much of me. You know, I like to be, now I'm being honest and vulnerable. I like to talk. Okay, that's good because I'm a teacher. But when I'm, and people know that, oh, he's good at talking. You know, when you put him somewhere, he can really, you know, just ramble on, and that's great. But when I'm in a crowd, it can also be my pitfall. When I'm at a party, I can just draw too much attention to me, right? I want to become the center of the party because I'm an entertainer. That's my trap, my pitfall. Too much of me becomes an entertainer and wants to have all the attention. Now, you can do this for yourself as well. The opposite of your pitfall is a challenge. So that's something that you don't have yet too much in your personality, but it's a challenge. So me being a very talkative person, being the one that wants to be in the center of attention as a pitfall in a crowd, has a challenge. And the challenge is the opposite of being the center of attention. The challenge is to be invisible, listen like a fly on the wall, and observe. Now, if I combine core quality and challenge, so being talkative and somewhat entertaining, and being a very good listener, you see there's a plus-plus relation. If I can combine these two elements of my personality, I become a much more effective servant leader. I don't want to become the entertainer. I need to be aware of that. But being too much of my challenge, which is in my example that I just gave, the listener, the quiet person, then if you really make this very big, somebody who's very much not there, who's like always listening, never talking, very quiet, those are passive people, right? That's my allergy. I really cannot stand people who don't show any initiative and who just sit there and absorb. I hate that. Makes me upset. Now, that's my core quadrants filled in for one core quality that I have, being the guy that does all the talking. So you can, the idea of this model is that by asking yourself those kind of questions, you try to fill in your pitfall, allergy, and challenge, because actually what you're trying to look for is your challenge. And you can do it for multiple core qualities. You know, if you've got the biggest one, maybe take the next one. So here's another example to get you started. Let's say that your core quality is determination. And you can ask yourself, oh, okay, what is it? What is it? Too much of determination. What what do others blame me for sometimes when I'm too determined? Right? What do I sometimes tolerate from myself? I know it's a bad habit that I have, but I think it's okay. Too much determination is, and you can think for yourself, what that might be. Pushiness. Yeah, I'm determined to do that. I'm going to push you. You have to do this, right? This is what you need to do. It's not just me being determined. It's me becoming too much determined and determining for you what to do. That's my pitfall. So what would be the challenge? The challenge would be the positive opposite of pushiness, the opposite of pushiness. And how can I find out what that is? Well, what do I miss in myself? What do I lack? I can ask myself what other people would wish me. I'm a very determined person, but what do other people wish for me that I would have more? Because that's my challenge. Apparently, I'm avoiding that for some reason because I think it's difficult. It's also what I admire in others, maybe. So the opposite of pushiness and a power that could be combined with determination is patience. Right. So I didn't select this for Josipa, but maybe this is a little bit something that could be. She was trying to become more patient, remember, in the beginning? And that's maybe because she's also very well known for her determination, because she's really, when she gets on to something, then she's going to get there. You want to hire her because she gets things done. So when you are a determined person and you want to make yourself more powerful, try to learn about patience, how to become more patient. Now, what would be the allergy, right? The opposite of patience. Not the opposite. Too much of patience. Too much of patience. Things that I hate in myself. Things that I really despise in others. Right? That's my allergy. Things that really upset me. That's passive people. Again, so you can end up at the same core competencies or character traits or whatever you want to call it from different directions. That's not a problem. It's a free exercise. It's whatever you think is right. But you can close the loop by saying, is it right to say that being passive is the opposite of being determined? Yes, it is. So this works. All right. Now, do you want to give it a try? To discuss with someone what their core quadrant is that you want to investigate. Yeah? Yeah, I see a hand raised. Mario wants a question. No, you want to try? Or with question?
No, I can try.
Yeah, no, but everybody can try. We're gonna do it in small groups.
Oh, in small groups. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, because otherwise it's going to be too late, and now I want to give you some time to work on this. Do I have another slide? Yes, that's the exercise. If you want, you can use sticky notes on the Jamboard. So you can go to the Jamboard, select an empty page, and work on that empty page. There's also Jamboard number, I don't know which one. Let me quickly check. Where I've copied, yes, so it's Jamboard number 3, page number 3. I've copied the Ofman model for you to refer to, because apparently Zoom doesn't allow me to share while you are in breakout rooms, to share my desktop. Okay, so have a go with it. Maybe you already were able to close your Ofman model on a core competency, but that doesn't matter. Then just share your thoughts with the other person and discuss it a little bit and give examples of how you know that this is working like that for you. And maybe also think about the consequences and talk a little bit about that. So the invitation is have an enriching conversation, either exploring your qualities or helping somebody to explore their qualities, or just discuss them. Okay? Does anybody have a question about this exercise before I start the breakout rooms? Cool. Good luck. so welcome back, everybody. I hope you had a good conversation. Discovered, or maybe if you didn't know yet, what your allergies maybe, or some other stuff you discovered. I'm trying to find, oh, here it is, my button to share my screen. All right, so we were looking at these core quadrants. Yeah, and you, like I said, take some time maybe, because we tend to just go on and on and on and on in our lives. But if you have the time at work to take some time, and you can use this also to reflect when something, you can have this feeling like, I know I've just done something that I do sometimes, and it's not good. It doesn't really work, but what is it? That's the moment to drop all your work, take the Ofman model, and maybe try and start from your pitfall, because you just ran into your pitfall, and then try to complete the whole diagram, the whole schema, starting from a pitfall instead of from a core quality like we just do now. Becoming more effective as a servant leader means, and I don't do it often enough, and I tell everybody to do it more because I know that I suck in it too, take more time to reflect. And reflecting doesn't mean just sit and think, but write it down or speak to yourself while you're in the car. Really, it makes a whole difference. Without reflection, there's almost no learning. All right, so we've come to the end of this little meetup. We've done, I've been talking a little bit about my life as a professional Scrum Master, understanding that there is more between heaven and earth than just implementing processes and telling people how to follow a framework. The success of your Agile transformation, as they always say, I think, lies in the ability to reach out to people and to take them along. And in order to do that, we need to better develop our soft skills and our understanding of what we are and how we behave. Because then you can come up with sensible remarks that will really help individuals and teams to change their behavior and to make life happier, because that's our ultimate goal, right? We are here to make life of software development or product development a little less annoying. I mean, that's what it is for me. That's why I do the work I do. But you probably have another goal, but for me it works. So here we are again, just to remind you, if you would be interested in doing this kind of stuff that you just did now for 2 hours, and you want to do this for 4 days in a row, and you want to do this live, because this is not going to be an online training, this is going to be physical training, and you want to learn, so we're going to cover all kinds of elements from psychology, spend a lot of time on understanding yourself, spend a lot of time on how to properly communicate without being violent, how to receive and give feedback. We're going to work on a lot of models to practice with them. You will need to bring in some experience that you have as a coach. This is not for beginners. But then after those 4 days, you will have a goodie bag full of beautiful tools to enrich your life and to make other people's lives better. So I invite you, hopefully soon in Belgrade. That's going to be soon already, September 14th. And how things are going to go with COVID, nobody knows. So, and I was thinking, yeah, for September 14, oh, wait a minute, maybe this is not going to happen. Hey, but we don't know, because I just came back from Ukraine. So we still have to see how things evolve. And I was thinking, if you're interested in learning all this kind of stuff, become a better coach, focused with problems and cases that we deal with in our daily lives as Scrum Masters or Agile leaders. If you're interested in this, it doesn't matter if it's in September or October, right? We're just going to do it because we want it. And if we have to wait a little bit because of this silly COVID-19, then we have to wait a little bit for it. I'm not going to do this online. That's my statement. All right. You can follow me. I don't know. Try to to Google my name and then follow me. Is there anybody who has a last question before we say our goodbyes? Speak up now or be silent forever.
Where can we find more about this? Like schedule we've seen, but like.
Yeah, you can find more on my website, and I will put in the chat what my website is called, because it's a horrible name. It's not called rolandflemm.com or something, unfortunately. Maybe I should do that. That would be a good one. Like,
and we'll send it all afterwards in a follow-up email. So
oh, that's good. Yeah, you can look up look on this website, and then there's a PDF you can download that contains a lot of information about what we do in training, and there's a blog article or two, and I'm writing more about this. Actually, what I think about doing is, I noticed that for really making your point, and the longer I'm busy with ESL, the more I get enthusiastic about its effects it has. And there are people now feeding me stuff about that it's debatable whether Agile coaches have successfully contributed to organizations. And these are real studies, right? Academic studies that people do. And people send that to me saying, yeah, well, Agile coaches are no good. We should do away with them. We don't need them. And I think we should fight that idea, because we need to have people that coach people. I think that's the solution for future management. Management is gone. We need to make them coaches. So maybe I'll write a book about it, is what I thought. Why not? Like, make a thick, good book filled with all those goodies and examples and stuff. That would be a great idea. It's going to take a while.
I have a question there. What do these people mention? Can you name an example? Why are they against Agile coaches?
No, they're not against. Well, they're not against Agile coaches. They just say that it's very questionable whether Agile coaches really have a positive contribution to the development of an organization. And now, of course, the difficulty is, how do you determine success? What is success? And success could be, if you look at a short time scale, when there's an organization that needs to adopt a framework and the practices of that framework, that a coach can come in, teach those practices, and then after a while, we will see those practices. People do daily scrums, people will do retrospectives, sprint reviews, and etc. And then we can say, yeah, this coach was successful, right? But that, to me, that's not a definition of success. That's like, can somebody implement a framework? That's a different question. But if you come back in 2 years or 3 years after an Agile coach has done some kind of coaching in an organization, what kind of practices are still there that evolved from the stuff that the coach brought? I think that's when you can start measuring success. And when you do that, I think you're going to be very disappointed with the results that you find. So I cannot disagree with the people that say Agile coaches are no good. Because I think when you look at the current state of the level of most people that say that they're Agile coaches, they don't know shit. So yes, they make a mess of it. Some of them are good, don't get me wrong, but most of them, nah. And these studies say, well, coaches are not so good. And I think if you look at data, they're probably right.
I have the same experiences. It happens exactly as you have now told us. So it holds for around a couple of months after the coaches come to the company, and around 2 years time exactly. I don't know from where you got the data, but this is exactly my observation. It starts to collapse.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
And there's a lot of reasons why that happens. And I was talking, for instance, to Bas Vodde. I don't know if you know him. He's the guy who wrote the LESS framework together with Greg Larman. So I was in a bar with him and I said, hey, listen, I'm a LESS candidate trainer, but actually I'm a bit of a, non-believer, because I see all these beautiful things that you've written down, and I really admire the principles, because I adhere to those principles too. But the funny thing is that if I look at all the places that had less implementations or something that looked like that. And when you come back after a while, it's gone. It didn't evolve. It's rare to find organizations that really flourish and really get bigger and expand on what's been left behind by the coaches. And he says, yes, unfortunately, you're right. And that's because the organizations that implement these kind of frameworks are way too big. And they do all kinds of stuff at the same time. They have safe, they try less somewhere in the corner of the organization. They do holacracy maybe to just give it a try. They just do anything they want. And basically, if you look at his work, a less implementation highly depends on the level of the organization that fully commits to doing less. And he implemented less at Nokia, and there's no less at Nokia anymore, or hardly. Reason being that the ultimate chief, like say the latest level, highest level of command, that decided to go for a large-scale Scrum, he took another job. And he was replaced by a person who was really old school theory X thinking person, command and control, and he just ruined everything that was there within like 3 months. So it's very shallow. You can do whatever you want, but you know, there's changes that you cannot foresee. At least that was Bas's story. He says, yeah, maybe it's all in vain what we do, because there's so much that can interfere with an initiative like this. And then, so he was not even referring to poor quality of coaches. He was referring to circumstantial stuff that happens that ruin initiatives. Just to say that, you know, it's don't give up. keep up the good work. Never give up. Good. I'm going to close it up. Yeah.
Just one quick question.
Last question.
Yeah, thanks. What are the boundaries or limits when a master become a kind of agile coach? What is the change of maybe mindset?
Yes.
From coming from master to agile.
I'm going to tell you very, very, very precisely. You're always a Scrum Master. That's what you do, because a Scrum Master provides services to the development team, the product owner, and the whole organization. So if you're talking to the CEO for some stuff, you're a Scrum Master. But you'll probably have more difficulties in getting a good relationship with that C-level person if you play the role of the underdog, being the servant Scrum Master. This guy needs something else to level with. So it might make sense to tell him that you're a coach. So it's a matter of choosing the right persona at the right time. Now I put, you know, and most of the time I say, hey, I'm Scrum Master, but I have to put myself down as a Scrum Master and Agile coach, because I know that if a managing director of a company says to a friend of his on the golf court, yeah, we're doing this change and I'm working with the guy, it's interesting for you maybe too, you should give him a call. And he checks me out on LinkedIn and he sees that I'm a Scrum Master. He goes like, I won't want to talk to a Scrum Master. It's more difficult. So you're always a Scrum Master, but sometimes you have to choose to say that you're an Agile coach. Because to be quite honest, an Agile coach is what? The coach for the Scrum Masters? Right? The guy who doesn't work with teams anymore, but knows all about Scrum? Come on. More difficult problems to solve? I don't know. I mean, there must be good reason. Maybe you can say, yeah, if you're ICF, CF, whatever, accredited, then you're an Agile coach because you have the coach accreditation. Sure. My opinion is that really we're Scrum Masters in order to make more impact, and sometimes we need to be smart and say that we're Agile coaches. Good. That was the last question. Yeah, now, I want to tell you good night. I hope you had some valuable lessons, some learnings. I'm going to bake a PDF and send it to Bogdan, and he will make sure that you will get that stuff in your mailbox. Good.
And To close on a more positive note, next week we'll probably have another Scrum evening, but the one which is pretty much open. We don't have any plans as the school is starting. We'll do a short Scrum beer. Everybody feel free to join. And from week after that, we are starting with the speakers, and you'll be informed in due time about it.
Cool.
See you all around. Thanks, Roland. Pleasure as always. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Belgrade whenever it happens, actually.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's hope it's soon.
Yeah, VUCA times.
VUCA times.
See you, people.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, Roland. Bye-bye.
Welcome.
Guys.